Uh, on this session of circular economy, we'll be talking about policies on marine circular economy and on circular economy in fashion industry. So now I would like to request Mr. Ravi Ranjan Guru, who is our Deputy Director General of All India Institute of Local Self-Government, to give the welcome address and proceed with our session.
In general, it's one of the toughest sessions. And people still, the last session was a little bit stretched. We also have a main session and still people are having lunch, but obviously we have to maintain the time also. So we are starting our session, and on behalf of ALSG, I would like to welcome all of you. I think the topic is very, very interesting, and the whole idea we started 2 years back. And in the last summit, I remember we had a good discussion with my colleague Kamlesh and all the team. And this is a very good initiative, and that ALG should do that. And with that concept, we started discussing with UCLG-ASPAC, and thanks to UCLG-ASPAC for supporting this entire initiatives, and Bhavnagar and the team. We started this the entire circular cities concept in 2000. Last summit, that's 2018, and then the whole concept we were formalized, and last month, I guess I'll say that, in World Urban Forum in Abu Dhabi, we have launched this program globally, and now the whole the concept is obviously it's a very interesting concept because look at the population of the urbanization. So most of the 50% of the population is going to live in urban areas, and most of the cities are today facing the challenge of the waste management, waste you talk, or maybe the water and all those things. And I remember in one of the events in the India Habitat Center, in last year, August or something, there are very good speakers from the various industries. And they talked about very interesting concept that why this circular economy and are required. I remember one of the session speaker was the lady from the textile industry, and she just asked the question, how many seasons do you know? How many seasons we generally have in India? So maybe some say 5, some say 8, some mention 10. But I was surprised to, heard that. She said that almost more than 120 seasons are there. This is a fashion industry. So every season you have a different clothes. So that means the entire your fashion industries are like the clothes that they are manufactured. I might be next season they may go the outdated. So that, and one of the textile industries is a very water. I'll say that the water requirements are very heavy, and that kind of a wastewater you are generating throughout the all these textile industries. So there are challenges, and I think most of the cities are struggling today. I, as a All India Institute of Local Self-Government, generally we have a lot of interaction with most of the cities in India, and we keep going there, and we do advocacy with them. And most of the cities have the same questions of there are 3-4 issues that most of the, not only India but South Asians are facing. And I see that when the circular economics things comes into the picture, there are many solutions are behind this. Look at the, if we can, or maybe city can be able to recycle their many materials which going into the dump yard. Obviously the height of the dump yard is going to reduce. I live in Delhi, and there are, I guess, 3-4 the big mountain kind of dump yards are there, and it's still going. So there is a solutions. I think most of the leaders are here. The whole concept of South Asian Cities Summit are like that. We wanted to bring the experience across the globe. We wanted to bring the knowledge across the globe. Let us have a kind of a discuss, debate, and find the solution. And there are various subject experts who is going to be here, who are already here. We have a line of a session. We are talking a lot of things on those lines, and I'm sure that most of the speakers and those have a lot of experience, and their experience are going to be benefited to most of the leaders and the cities representation who are here. So the whole, if you look at the today's the program, uh, we, we, we are talking about the circular economy towards setting the resource efficient, sustainable and circular cities. So there are, I guess, very good speakers. So I just wanted to conclude my my session, my speaking to say thanks to UCLG-ASPAC and all the delegates who have joined us for this program. And I would also request all of you to join this Circular Cities platform. We are going to formalize this, and this is going to be one of the committee under the UCLG-ASPAC. So at least our target is to meet annually, at least twice in a year at a different location. Whenever UCLG-ASPAC has programs, or maybe LSE has a programs, so we can have this circular economy programs during the summit or during this kind of an event, so that our dialogue should continue. Our dialogue should continue. That's my whole intention. So let us, with this, I request all of you to please, we have certain kind of nominations, so you can join this concept, you can join this forum, and my colleagues maybe give you those information further. And I am also available to answer some of the questions. And so I request, I guess, all the speakers to, I guess, so thank you so much, and hand over to Sagar Moy and Kamlesh. Thank you.
Now I would like to request Kamlesh Mathur to take over the session as the moderator and also introduce the speakers. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Ravi, for giving the background to our esteemed invited guests and the speakers about what we have achieved so far in the circular economy. And as you have rightly said, the circular economy is going to be a very important issue for us in dealing with a lot of problems related to industries, related to the urban issues, and also related to the citizen and communities. I think circle is one of the most fascinating shape if we talk about human life, but at the same time, for the material also, the circular economy is very important. I would just like to quickly explain give few numbers to all of you. I think today more than 8 million tons of plastics are deposited in ocean per year, and that makes 80% of the debris, and the total waste of 20 billion tons ends up in ocean each year. So circular economy is very important for us as an organization, and we already took the initiative, as Ravi said, in 2018 at the South Asian City Summit, where we have conceptualized the idea and presented it to the cities, and the cities liked it very much. And then again we have done a lot of series of discussions with the cities at the level of local government. Last year we have done one full day session on circular economy on November 1st, where many cities come and join, and also experts have joined. And on 10th of February, as Ravi said, we have also launched the global event, United Network of Circular Cities at Abu Dhabi at World Urban Forum. As we are already running behind, so for our schedule is concerned, I would like to not take much time and would like to invite our esteemed speakers. We have Mr. Kevin Huston, who is the director of Carbonlites, Carbon Masters. Kevin, can you come on the dais? Kevin has worked a lot with the private sector, and he is immensely contributing in the circular economy through his innovation on manufacturing bio-CNG. Maybe I would like to understand from Kevin how he could also contribute in using his technology for the issues of not only circular economy and waste management, but also how we can address the issue of air pollution, because I believe bio-CNG could be not only change the local fuel economy, but also could address the concern of air pollution. We have Dr. Vikram Mathur, founding director of Tandem Research. Dr. Vikram Mathur is an anthropologist or science and technology. He has diverse research interests, including the governance of emerging technology, social and cultural dimensions of the technology transition, and political and social contingencies of the production of scientific knowledge about nature. We respect how Dr. Vikram Mathur can contribute as an anthropologist about the governance issues, and also how the citizen can take part in this initiative, and above all how the cities can really create new ways, new approach in order to address and integrate the circular economy to address most challenging issues, whether it is related to the global chemical management, whether it is related to climate change, and also air pollution. And we have Ms. AsihBudiati, who is the UCLG regional project manager, and Asih has great responsibility so far the circular economy is concerned, because one of our project which we have been awarded by European Union last year, which is titled as Climate Resilient and Inclusive Cities, have very strong component of circular economy. So maybe I would like to understand from Asih that how does he think that the project is going to contribute in shaping the narrative of the cities and local leaders on circular economy, and how we could create some very innovative initiatives on circular economy. With this, I would like to just stop here, and maybe I would like to invite first our speaker, Mr. Kevin Huston, to address the delegates here. Thank you.
Some of the work that my company's been doing down in Bangalore. And you might be wondering, what's an Englishman doing dressed in what looks like, I believe it's called a Modi jacket today, in a conference in Goa talking about the circular economy. Could I have the next slide? About 11 years ago, I threw up my career. I had a lengthy career with multinationals like Procter & Gamble, PwC, and latterly IBM, and beat apart at Edinburgh University because I was really concerned that the world wasn't doing nearly enough to reduce carbon emissions. So I thought I'd better learn about it. So I went back to university for a year at the tender age of 56 and did a 1-year master's program in carbon management. And I had the very good fortune to meet that brilliant young man in Edinburgh who was an outstanding environmental engineer who'd come to do the same program. And we set up a company called Carbon Masters, whose mission was and is to address the climate crisis and reduce carbon emissions. We did that successfully for 2 or 3 years in the UK, and then Som returned to Bangalore in 2012. Now, next slide please. The problems that we're seeking to address with Carbonlites are huge in India, but they're also very, very relevant for cities throughout the developing world, particularly in Southeast Asia. First of all, the issue of rapid urbanization, and the inability, therefore, for waste management infrastructure to catch up with it. So in India, from 4,000 cities, we're generating about 62 million tonnes of municipal solid waste every year. The overwhelming majority of that goes to a landfill where it releases a toxic greenhouse gas called methane, with a 32 times greater warming potential than CO2. The issue with that, though, is the 62 millions will double by 2030. So Bangalore and many other cities in India are drowning in waste, and that's only going to get worse unless we solve it. We all know about the climate crisis, and unless we get off fossil fuels, the consequences for us all are going to be pretty dire, and they're going to be even worse for India and Southeast Asian cities. So we need to find alternatives for fossil fuels. And finally, for millions and millions of Indian farmers, they've been spending time since the 60s throwing ever more chemical fertilizers and pesticides in the soil, and that is depleting the soil of nutrients. 25% of all the arable land in India is already a desert, and India will end up at a full desert if it doesn't reduce the chemical fertilizers that it's chucking on the soil. Government policy subsidizing urea doesn't really help. The subsidy on urea is 80,000 crore a year. So Indian taxpayers are spending more to subsidize chemical fertilizers which are ruining farmers' soils than they're spending on your health and education system combined, which makes no sense. So how does Carbonlites solve that problem in the principle of the circular economy? So, next slide please. So what we are doing is we're taking the organic portion of the municipal solid waste stream, so that's principally food waste, but we can also take agricultural waste, that's cow dung, chicken dung, pressed mud from the sugar industry, and we either pick that up in our own trucks in Bangalore, which run on our gas, or we work with partners who are managing the IT parks, the business parks in Bangalore, and we bring that into our biogas plants. Okay? We have two types of biogas plants, large scale doing 50 tonnes of waste a day, and we have small scale plants, which I'll come back to at the end of my talk. So we produce biogas. That isn't anything particularly new. Not many people know this, but the very first biogas plant in the world was built in Mumbai in a leper colony in 1859. So the value of biogas has been known since that time. The new thing is that we've developed purification technology, which strips the impurities out of that raw biogas, and we end up with biomethane, which is at least 95% methane, slightly higher than natural gas. And we bottle that in specifically, innovatively designed cylinders under pressure that we then ship to hotels and restaurants for cooking. So it changes the economics of biogas. Too many biogas plants across the world make electricity. Biogas is a bad way to do power. Solar's much better. You can't get the economics right. But however, we end up with two products. We end up with a gas that we can sell to restaurants, displace LPG. We take the digestate slurry every day from our digesters. We in-row compost that with other biomass. We've developed a biofertilizer inoculant we stick in at the last minute. We end up with a high-quality organic fertilizer which helps farmers reduce the amount of chemical fertilizers in their soil and makes that soil very much more fertile. So in a way, you see, everything that we'd normally throw away, we're taking and we're reusing, which is the essence of the circular economy, as opposed to recycling. Nothing wrong with recycling, except usually most recycling processes require more energy. This reuse process, repurpose process, is the essence of the circular economy. And all natural systems follow the circular economy. It's only our stupidity to go in a linear fashion, which is currently ruining the world. Next slide, please. So, if you look at what's the opportunity here? If you look down the left-hand side, India is blessed with an abundance of agricultural wastes. Everything from the pressed mud from its sugar industry, the spent wash from its distilleries for making beer and spirits, from the dairy industry, as well as this growing and alarming municipal solid waste. What isn't up there, and we're just starting to work on that, is sewage sludge. We're doing a project very shortly in Jaipur to combine sewage sludge with food waste, again to generate bottled bio-CNG, which we can sell to restaurants as well as fertilizer. So the opportunities are in the whole of the commercial side of LPG could be replaced with bio-CNG. We can get diesel cars off the road and replace that with biomethane vehicles. In fact, the government of India has just announced a very enlightened policy called SATAT, Sustainable Alternatives for Transport, where they're saying they're asking 5,000 entrepreneurs to come forward, build a large-scale bottled bio-CNG plant on the basis that the 4 nationalised oil and gas companies will guarantee to buy every kilogram of biogas at a fixed price plus GST. Now, that's a very enlightened policy. Around 200 of those plants are already being built as we speak. So we've got a long way to go to 5,000, but I think the government will get there. If that works, we can reduce the amount of diesel cars on the road, because you can put this gas at the right purity straight into a CNG vehicle, and it's carbon neutral in use. My worry with the big dash of the motor industry to electric cars is in India today, 85% of your grid electricity is run on a fossil fuel. So from a GHG emissions point of view, electric cars don't really help. They will reduce particulate matter, so they're a benefit, but it doesn't do anything for greenhouse, whereas this is completely carbon neutral, has no PM2.5 or PM10, and therefore it's the right answer. Biomethane is a wonder fuel. It's the answer to the climate crisis in terms of transport, in terms of cooking, and in terms of backup power generation. Next slide, please. So not only that, so our vision is we want to scale Carbonlites bio-CNG, we want to scale our fertiliser. Because for every bag I sell and for every cylinder I sell, I'm reducing carbon emissions. But it gets even better. If you look at the 17 SDGs, we hit about 7 of them in terms of if we scale this business up. And we've had a piece of work done by Mission Innovation Framework that said if you scale Carbonlites across the world, you could save 46 million tonnes of CO2e by 2030. So there's a substantial climate action with doing this, but there's also lots and lots of other co-benefits. Next slide, please. Now, another innovation that we've done, which I think is very relevant for cities, is what we call Carbonlites in a box. So there you see, we've built an anaerobic digester inside a shipping container. Well, why would you want to do that? Well, most anaerobic digesters are big concrete civil construction. They take forever and they're all done project at a time. If we need something large, scalable, nothing beats a shipping container. There's lots and lots and lots of them. We only use reused shipping containers at the end of their life as a shipping container. We repurpose that and turn it into an anaerobic digester that can take in agri-waste, turn it into gas. You go to the next slide, please. The execution we've got in Cormangla is a tender we won with the BPMP, where we're using our containers right in the heart of Cormangla, which is a very middle-class part of Bangalore. And waste comes within a 5-kilometre radius of that plant. It's crushed, it's put into that biogas plant, we create gas, we purify that gas, and we pipe it straight over the back wall into a restaurant. So I'm very proud of this because it's an example of the shortest energy transition chain in the world, because waste comes from 5 kilometres and within 200 kilometres we're converting that food waste into energy which is then consumed. Now if you think of the LPG that we're replacing in that restaurant, it probably started life in the Middle East. So in 200 metres, locally I'm creating my own energy and I'm consuming it. I'm reducing carbon emissions, I'm reducing pollution. That's a pretty wonderful thing to be doing. So the more we can do this across the world and across cities, we'll solve their problem. Next slide, please. So to finish up then, the real impact of what we're doing is we're saving carbon emissions, because by not sending waste to landfill, you're not having that methane released to the atmosphere. By creating a fuel that can displace diesel, petrol, LPG, you're saving carbon emissions. For every 1 tonne of chemical fertiliser I can reduce, I save 7 tonnes of CO2e. So I would argue a biogas plant today is the best greenhouse gas mitigation solution available on the planet. All the others, they're good, but they have intermittency problems, solar and wind. So it's the best solution we've got. But not only that, it has significant other co-benefits. One of them being we can provide a much better agricultural input for farmers. They'll end up with healthier soils, they'll grow healthier food, which will benefit us all, and it'll create jobs. And it'll create jobs, I believe, in a way that's really helpful to India and to Southeast Asian cities. Because you'll create jobs that require a blend of skills, right from unskilled people, semi-skilled people, to skilled people. So our vision is a large-scale, decentralised biomethane industry in India and across Southeast Asian cities, all of whom have similar problems, all of whom have agri-waste or municipal solid waste that can become the feedstock and be converted using the principles of a circular economy to benefit us all. Thank you very much.
May I please invite Dr. Vikram Mathur to share his views on circular economy, more from the governance perspective, and also on a few very important narrative which globally we are developing is on mostly about, I just discussed with him about air pollution as a social disaster. If you could share his narrative on that, and maybe on the governance and how citizens can contribute.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'm a bit kind of slightly scattered in my presentation because I was not entirely sure how I should should structure it, so bear with me. But I think there are 3 or 4 things that I want to talk about. So first of all, just very quickly, I run a research collective which is based out of Goa. We work largely on cities, but we are located in a rural area, and we are basically what I call anthropologists and sociologists of science and technology. So we are largely working on looking at social dimensions of technology, particularly in the context of Indian cities and smart cities. So we are looking at what is happening with social justice in the context of big data, and what is the impact of AI on decision making for minority groups. So range of social issues that link to technology. So that's the really context within which within which much of my research is based, and I think in today's talk I wanted to talk about 3 things, and obviously first question which I was intrigued when I was invited to give this talk was this link that was being established between coastal cities, the blue economy, the circular economy. So I think there were a lot of various ideas that were woven together. So I thought what I might do is from context of Panjim city, I might try and unpack that. So just I want to mention that one of the things that we are doing is we are setting up what is known as an urban living lab. So we are setting up India's first urban living lab in the city of Panjim in cooperation with the smart city, but also working with other local bodies. And one of the things that is central to that idea of a living lab is that a lot of technologies are being propagated. So there's a whole plethora of smart technologies or new technologies, emerging technologies, but many of these technologies do not diffuse, or the uptake is really low. And the reason that the uptake is low is because they are not well aligned with consumer practices and user behaviors, and there is a paucity of research on this interaction between how people behave and consume in the cities, and what are the sorts of technologies that you can bring. So that is the purpose of this urban living lab, is to actually see, why are these technologies and why are these innovations not moving forward, and what are the social dimensions of these social technological systems that we want to change. So these are not technological systems that we want to change, we want to change social technological systems. So so we're going to run pilots and experiments in the context of urban spaces, centered around technology, but looking mostly at the social dimensions of technology. So that's really the framework within which I like to think about the circular economy. And unfortunately, there are a lot of kind of broad ideas, but very simply speaking, much of the research that we see now, which is emerging on circular economy, particularly in the context of cities, is either kind of technological or economic research. And there is this, limited understanding of the role that behavior plays in the circular economy. So the circular economy is, all about efficiency, but social scientists will tell you that efficiency doesn't necessarily, it in fact leads to overconsumption very often and not reduced consumption. So how do we think about circular economy in the context of reducing consumption? And I think that is kind of the first area that we are interested in. I also think that a lot of consumer behavior is implicit in what we buy. So why would people buy a green product? What is the advantage of labeling in products and in different services so that people choose greener services? So that is another area that we need to really seriously think about. And facilitated by digital technologies, we see that in the use phase of technologies, there is the opportunity of a sharing economy, and there are ways in which materials can be reused within groups. I see that digital platforms are emerging, for example, in Indian cities where people are even sharing. Obviously, ride-hailing apps and ride-sharing is a very common urban phenomena, but people are beginning to share material products, and a lot of those sharing practices are very culturally specific, and so what are the sort of behavioral changes that we need to that are required in that? And then last but the least, if you have gone around the city of Panjim, which actually has a pretty good waste collection system, you still see huge piles of waste everywhere. You see piles of waste in neighborhoods, and the reason that is happening is that even when the infrastructure and the policies and the systems are in place, we find that people do not recycle and do not reuse, and I think that's a major challenge. And one of the things, and obviously, many people would say, okay, this is because you don't have enough regulation, which is going to disincentivize this kind of behavior, and you also do not have incentives, right? So people very often talk about incentives and behavior, and incentives and regulation to change behavior, but that's not enough. And I think that is what some of our research in Punjab is showing, that it's not just about incentives and regulation, and that people's behavior towards waste and waste recycling has a lot to do with the sort of values and beliefs that are kind of enshrined in their everyday practices. I think that with that what I wanted to do is I wanted to propose this kind of framework within which we need to think about how behavior and is critical for the circular economy, both thinking about consumption, thinking about how people purchase and what they purchase, and how do you nudge people towards better products, how do you ensure sustainable use of products, and in that process, the sharing economy and the platform-based sharing economy is really exciting. And then finally, in the kind of recycling of these products, and very often when we are thinking of this behavior, we are looking at kind of rational choice frameworks around regulation and incentives, but we also need to think very seriously about how do you actually change people's beliefs and values around environment, which would support circular economy. And I think that is so. I know. I mean, it's far more exciting, and I get more excited when I see innovative technologies for recycling and so on and so forth. But I think the movement or the kind of process that we want to start with the Urban Living Lab in Punjab and potentially also have the opportunity to replicate it in other smart cities, which is our mandate, is not to work with the smart cities, is going to be this idea of testing out new technologies, but basically trying to understand people's behavior around those technologies, so we can co-create solutions that diffuse. So these will be the spaces where we can experiment with these ideas. So that's like that was like one part of what I want to talk about. I think Kamlesh also asked me to touch upon something that we had a conversation, or was a presentation that I made maybe some time past and wrote about it, and there was around the kind of air pollution crisis that many cities are facing. And again, I think the biggest problem is to frame air pollution as a technological issue, and it's not just to do about the fuel choices, it's not just to do about transportation planning, it's not just about monitoring, so you know continuously what your PM10 levels are, and all sorts of apps and technologies have developed around it. But I think of air pollution as a social issue, and I think the reason that people's behavior is not changing, and yes, a regulation like or and even force people to behave in a certain way, but why are people not automatically behaving in particular way to address air pollution? Even the statistics when you see about it, respiratory illness in children and all of these things, these should be major. These should jolt your system and make you completely change how you consume and behave. But how do you bring about these behavioral changes as an important component of solutions? So that is another area that I'm deeply interested in, and both in terms of the kind of theories of that, but also how do you practically do it. And so there are various theories around social and psychological fields that are around nudging and changing behavior that we are quite interested in, and we look at in the context of the circular economy. So I think those were the kind of two points. I also sort of wanted to talk a little bit about, because I'm currently working on this, a little bit about kind of what I'd say emerging technology. So there is a lot of enthusiasm. In fact, the fundamental basis of the smart city mission is to apply ICT technologies for addressing challenges. And I don't want to, since I work with them, I don't want to say it's a flawed mission, but I certainly think that the approach that needs to be taken with these digital technologies, which are also being developed for the circular economy, needs to be much more sociological. So I have colleagues who are working at IIT Bombay, and they are developing this app which is going to take, so if you have that app on your phone, you can take the photograph of a dump and you can send it to the municipal authority, and they'll have some kind of image recognition AI technology to recognize it and sort it out, and there, I also saw a proposal to get some kind of smart dustbins that talk, and so there's all sorts of fairly exciting ways in which ICT technologies are going to be deployed in Indian cities, allegedly to support the circular economy. But I think we have to again look at how those are going to function vis-a-vis how people use and absorb technology, and I definitely think the way to do it is to do these, so come and work with the Urban Living Lab in Panjim, and come and do some experiments around these technology products to see how you can co-create this and design it in ways that people are going to use these products. And we're looking at a bunch of things in this context. There are obviously these kind of apps that citizens can use, which use image recognition technology to ultimately kind of decipher, classify these images, which are quite interesting. But there are also asset tagging apps and also general sort of connectivity apps that would allow you to share materials through the platforms that are emerging. So I think that was in some sense what I wanted to talk a little bit about, and I thought of this as a provocation. I certainly don't have the solutions to creating a circular economy, but I just generally think that I just want to think a little bit about how we're going to go about doing it, and particularly how we're going to go about doing it in the context of how people consume, behave in Indian cities. And finally, I think my closing point was a little bit about the marine economy. Although I'm not an expert on the marine economy, I was once invited to a marine economy conference where I was asked to talk about ocean energy, and I thought that's really interesting. So I went ahead and attended this, and it was in Indonesia. And when I reached there, I realized it was a naval exercise, and I had to accompany somebody on a fleet review. So I just feel like the marine economy narrative, to me, I'm still thinking of it as a narrative. I'm thinking suddenly it certainly has a geopolitical context to it. So we should not forget that the marine economy has that naval geopolitical context, but a lot of it is about extraction in certain parts of the oceans and which are not governed. So I follow the discourse around it. I don't again have any valuable insights on how to increase or decrease the marine economy, but I just think definitely it's something that we need to talk about. And in the context of the coastal cities, in the coastal city I live and work in, or at least I work in, I don't live in it, I live in a village and I come and work in Panjim, is definitely, I think we need to think about, very important that the sea has always been a receptacle of waste, and that is true even in Goa, which is fairly more advanced than other Indian cities or states where the waste from the city, from the urban area are going into the sea. And I think in that context, it's really good that we have highlighted this issue of coastal cities, which have this unique relationship with the water around them, where a lot of this waste is going. And even in the city of Panjim, I don't know how many people are here from Panjim. The resident population is 1/8 the size of the population of the city in high tourist season, and you will see a lot of waste being dumped around the city. So again, the behavior is not just of the residents of the city, but we need to think about what people are doing to contribute to this circular economy, or at least the waste that is being generated in these days. Yeah, I think with that I'm going to end my intervention and open for questions.
Now I invite AsihBudiati, and she is a Regional Project Manager for UCLG-ASPAC. And she has great responsibility in making circular economy a reality for many coastal cities, because UCLG-ASPAC and ALSG as a partner, they have been awarded a 5-year project which is known as CRIC, Climate Resilient and Inclusive Cities. So maybe we would like to hear Asih more and see how few of the circular initiatives could be translated as part of our intervention in the next 5 years. And at the same time, Asih also represents Indonesia, and as we know that most of the mega cities are coastal cities, and coastal cities have population of around 2.4 billion. So it is very important to listen her and to find out what we actually could offer as a team to the various cities of Asia, so far the circular economy is concerned. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for AILSG for inviting me today. So when I was invited by Kamlesh to discuss about circular economy, the two concepts that I had in my mind is, the first is responsible consumption and production. I'm really a big fan of that. And the second one is extended producer responsibility. That two concepts that I really want to highlight. Can I get my presentation, please? Yeah, okay. So why that responsible consumption and then also the extended producer responsibility important? As you can see, this is Jakarta. I came from Indonesia. So Jakarta produced 7,600 tons of waste per day. According to the wasteforchange.org, within 2 days, those wastes can stack up into create one Borobudur temple. Can you imagine? So I believe that rather than we try to solve the waste that is already produced, which is what we need to do now, I believe more on let's try to prevent before the waste is produced. So that's why responsible consumption and production is very important, and also extended producer responsibility. Earlier, Coca-Cola, Danone, they produce water bottle, Coca-Cola can, they sell to the customer, and then they put the responsibility of cleaning the waste to the local government. It shouldn't be like that. We should put the responsibility to the producers. So let's not produce more waste, and then that change can be happen when we put the responsibility to the producers, and then they start to think, oh, I need to produce my bottle can into a more sustainable materials, right? And then maybe they will put more money and more cost, because it's costly to use sustainable materials, and then the customers will say that, oh, it's expensive. Maybe I will bring my own mug, so I will not produce more waste. So that's the first thinking. So if you go next to the slide, yeah. So this is how the background. The overall Indonesia is. In annual, we produce 6.8 million trash per year. Can you go to the next slide? And almost 0.7 million tons goes to the sea, to the lakes and the rivers. So we are actually the second only to China as the world's largest contributor to the ocean plastic problem. And 4 of our rivers are among the top 20 polluters globally. This plastic pollution, this waste issues has been threatened our tourism industry. Last year, Bali declared a trash emergency, because if you saw in internet the picture of Kuta Bali beach, it says that it's a trash emergency in Bali. We have to mobilize 700 cleaners to clean all the Bali beach. Go next to to the next slide. So the government is trying to solve the issues by having the Indonesian action plan on marine debris plastic. It's actually also involving the overall, not only marine debris. So we are targeting to reduce marine debris plastic by 70% in 2025, reduce solid waste by 30%, and handle 70% of solid waste. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the policy that the government imposed is that the government November 2019, the government signed the regulation for the extended producer responsibility. So now producer in Indonesia, they are given 10 years to reduce at least 30% of their own waste. So they need to take responsibility as well. Go to the next slide, please. Not only from the producer side, so we also promoting very much on community-based activity. People might say that this is very small-scale activity, the waste bank, but the idea of waste bank is we don't want them to reduce. Their main responsibility is not to reduce the waste, but this waste bank is actually promoting circular economy at a very down level. Like housewives, at school, at university, they now understand that the concept of circular economy through these very simple things. And until now, according to the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, we have almost 8,000 waste banks across the country that contributes to reduce 1.7% waste per year, which is probably nothing, but in terms of the concept, the whole country now understands the concept of circular economy, that they can support the country. Next slides. So as Kamlesh mentioned, that together UCLG-ASPAC with AIILSG, in January we launched the Climate Resilience Inclusive Cities project. This is a 5 years project funded by the EU, where we will promote circular economy as part of the activity, and we will do some piloting in 10 pilot cities. The project will be to promote a triangular cooperation between Europe, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. So we will have similar organization like workshop to learn and exchange between what European does, because for us in Asia, what we need from Europe, probably not always the money, but we need to understand the knowledge, the technology, the know-how, and maybe their experience, so we don't have to repeat the same mistakes that probably they have already done before. And then from between South and Southeast Asia, we could learn what is the best suitable in the region, and so we can exchange. So the objective of the project is some of the objective is we want to understand the sustainable use of resource by cities, because we think that climate resilience can be achieved if we understand the local resource better and then we empower the people. We also support resilience and action for the environment. The project will support the transition to a more resource-efficient systems of production and consumption. And prosperity and innovations in the cities, that include technology, innovation, and identification of sustainable financing mechanism to promote circular economy. That's all, my last slide. Here. This is, I always promote, please, responsible consumption and productions are key. Please always remember that. Thank you.
So may I request my esteemed invited guests to continue their presence here. We are going to discuss very important session on circular fashion. Thank you very much.
sir, one second. One second.
Fashion. We have Madam Rina, who is former mayor of Bhavnagar, and she will be representing the community and community is concerned on circular economy, the community action on circular economy, and she is already working a lot with the local community in the state of Gujarat on creating upcycling projects. So thank you very much, madam, for giving your time here. We have Director Operations, Sofies Sustainability Leaders Private Limited, Mr. Ankit Kapasi. Ankit, if you could join us for this discussion, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation. Ankit is an international environmental sustainability practitioner with 20 years of experience in the field of resource efficiency.
I would request everybody here present here to please be quiet, and we'll be finished with the session very soon, and then we can all go out and then enjoy. So just another 25 minutes. Thank you so much.
Then Ankit has worked a lot on various circular pathways approaches for the industries, for the fashion sector. And Ankit, thank you very much. Ankit also worked a lot with British Fashion Council, so we would like to have view from Ankit. And we have Miss Abigail from Saahas Zero Waste. Abigail is coming here on very short notice because her superior Shobha Raghavan, Chief Operating Officer from Saahas Zero Waste, could not join us because he has to attend a very important board meeting. Thank you to all speakers, and I will set the floor open for my speakers, and if they could share their view quickly in the form of presentation on the fashion. But on my side, since as a kid, whenever I was going to market, I was really getting amazed with many heaps of dresses and clothing material, and I used to think as a kid because I was very much sure that and convinced that not everybody is going to buy it, not everybody is going to wear it, and what will happen to this dress materials. So rather than saying anything on this myself, we have very esteemed speakers to discuss this issue. So I first invite Madam Rina Shah with her presentation and views, and I would appreciate her a lot if she could really talk about the community perceptions and role of citizen in implementing the circular fashion approach.
Thank you, Kamlesh, and thanks to all dignitaries presented over here to listen to us. As I am not an academician, so I am not going to give you any presentation or give you any definition or something like that. I will just talk very practical things, or I will show you some of the videos or photographs which are very practical things which are prevailing already in the market. जो काफ़ी लोग हिंदी भी बैठे हैं तो थोड़ा हिंदी भी बोलूँगी ताकि सबको थोड़ा कन्वीनियंट रहे. So I will talk, मतलब मैं पूरा जो बात कर रही हूँ उसमें कोई भी डेफिनेशन या व्याख्या नहीं दे रही हूँ, सिर्फ आपको बता रही हूँ कि ये जो कंसेप्ट है उसमें हमको क्या करना है या क्या होता है या रियलिटी में क्या हो रहा है. So I have to talk on two things mainly, which is given to me from Kamlesh and his team. Like I have to talk on women leadership related to circular fashion, and also practically what is there prevailing in the society. So when we talk about a woman, particularly when I am a woman, of course I like to and I love to talk about women, their creativity and their power. So I will start my session with saying that that is for a woman, that a woman is a full circle within her the power to create, nurture and transform. So हम सब जो बहनें यहाँ पे बैठी है, हमारे पास एक पावर है जिसमें से हम मतलब हमारे पास एक नेचुरल इंस्टिंक्ट है जो हम बाय बॉर्न लेके आते हैं, जिसमें से हमारे पास ये क्रिएटिविटी है कि हम कोई भी चीज़ है उसको कुछ नया क्रिएट करने की हम में एबिलिटीज़ है, हम कर सकते हैं, हमारे अंदर पावर है। और यहाँ बैठी जो भी जेंटलमैन है वो सब इस पावर को अप्रिशिएट ज़रूर करते हैं या करेंगे इन फ्यूचर। सो वी हैव गॉट नेचुरल इंस्टिंक्ट जो हम कुछ क्रिएटिव करके कुछ नई चीज़ में ट्रांसफॉर्म करते हैं। फॉर एग्जाम्पल अगर आप लोगों की ही बात करें, यहाँ पे बैठे हुए आप लोग सब वर्किंग भी हो और किचन भी मतलब घर भी संभालते हो, तो whenever you are cooking, आप जब कुकिंग करते हैं घर पे तो कुछ चीज़ नहीं है घर में और आपको कुछ बनाना है, कुछ चीज़ बनानी है, कुछ नया खाना बनाना है और एक द लास्ट मोमेंट आपने शुरू कर दिया बनाना, आपको पता चला कि ये एक या दो चीज़ उसमें से एक या दो इंग्रेडिएंट अवेलेबल नहीं है, तो आप लोग डेफिनेटली कुछ ना कुछ मैनेज करके जो चीज़ आप बना रहे हो वो बना के ही रहोगे। सो इट्स अ नेचुरल इंस्टिंक्ट कि आपके पास वो पावर है, आप जिसमें से कुछ नया करेंगे, नया बना देंगे। तो यही क्रिएटिविटी, यही चीज़ हमको यहाँ पे अप्लाई करनी है, यहाँ पे बात करनी है। सो वुमेन हैज़ अ पावर टू डू एनीथिंग एवरीथिंग यूजिंग देयर क्रिएटिविटी। तो अब बात करें अगर हम सर्कुलर फैशन की, जो कि आज हमारा वी हैव अ मेन टॉपिक दैट इज सर्कुलर फैशन। आई एम नॉट अ सर्कुलर फैशन या तो फैशन स्पेशलिस्ट, मैं कोई फैशन स्पेशलिस्ट नहीं हूँ, तो मेरे पास उसकी कोई बात करने की एक्सपर्टाइज तो नहीं है, पर जो चीज़ सोशल ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में हो रही है, आई विल टॉक ऑन दैट, आई विल शो यू समथिंग ऑन दैट। तो अभी तक हम जो बात कर रहे थे या हम सुन रहे थे, वी वर लिसनिंग लाइक देयर आर लॉट ऑफ क्लोथ्स, जो अभी कमलेश बता रहा था कि एवरी सेकेंड वन लोड ऑफ आई मीन ट्रक लोड विच आर गोइंग थ्रोन, मतलब फेंका जाता है, इतने सारे कपड़ों को फेंका जाता है, थ्रो किया जाता है। हाँ, when we go to buy clothes, we always bring lot of clothes. Our requirement is maybe one cloth, two cloth, one sari, two sari, one dress, two dress. But when we go for purchasing, we don't see that, and we buy lot of saris, lot of dresses, lot of things, and we brought it. ऐसे ही अभी जो मतलब there are lot of clothes which are in the you can say in the market which are very very cheaper, so we bring lot of clothes. अब ये कपड़े हमने मार्केट में आए, यूज़ किए, what after that, उसके बाद क्या हम उसको क्या करते हैं, या तो फेंक देते हैं या तो उसको किसी को देते हैं। अब जो कपड़े यूज हो चुके हैं, टोटली यूज्ड, आफ्टर दैट व्हाट, वहां से सर्कल वहां तक आ गया, अब आगे क्या, तो उसको या तो रिसाइकल होना है या तो इसको रीयूज करना है। अब रिसाइकल करेंगे, देन देयर इज लॉट ऑफ things, lot of resources which will be used for recycle. Lot of मतलब चीज़ें बहुत रिसाइकल करने में यूज़ होगी, जैसे पानी का यूज़ होगा, बिजली का यूज़ होगा, एंड काफ़ी रिसोर्सेज विल बी यूज्ड। सो व्हाट, तो अगर हम उसमें कोई वही कपड़े में कुछ वैल्यू एडेड कर दे, उसको कुछ वैल्यू ऐड करके कुछ करे नया, तो we can reuse them, right? आप बैठे हुए लोग agree हो? Yeah? So there are lot of ways, lot of things which we can do in the society, in the community, जहाँ पे हम ये शुरू कर सकते हैं या ये ideas generate कर सकते हैं। हम कोई इतना बड़ा business अभी नहीं खोल के बैठे हैं कि but there are lot of studios, upcycling studios, जो कपड़ों को हम reuse करके कुछ नया बनाते हैं, उसको upcycling studios coming up. This kind of studios are coming up in the big cities. Like Bombay में बहुत सारे studios खुल चुके हैं जहाँ पे upcycling clothes को ये एक फैशन में लाने की कोशिश की जा रही है. तो I will like to show the videos. I will talk while they are going on the screen. Like we have a samples, जो clothes के samples आते हैं market में. तो जब कपड़ा बिकने के लिए आता है, when they come in the market, there are samples which come in the market. तो वो sample cannot be recycled because they are very small in the size. So it is not possible to recycle. So what to do? If you throw them for years, they will be there. It will not get मतलब उसका कुछ और नहीं होगा. ये कपड़े कभी कंपोस्ट नहीं होंगे, न तो रिसाइकल होंगे, कुछ नहीं होगा. What to do with those sample? Can you twist the side? तो यहाँ पे एक हमने भावनगर में एक मेरे सिटी में एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है जो कि ये कर रहा है कि जो छोटे सैंपल्स है क्लोथ्स के, उनको जोड़ के उनमें से ही नई प्रोडक्ट्स डेवलप की जाए. So there are few ladies who are doing this in the city. जो छोटे जो भी सैंपल्स है उनको थ्रो करने की बजाय जो भी फैक्ट्रीज और जो भी मर्चेंट्स है उनसे लेके आते हैं और उनमें से ही नई प्रोडक्ट्स डेवलप करते हैं. So by the time leave that video, jump the another video. There are few other ideas. Like I have a third video. Show the third video. Like we have old sarees. Lot of ladies are there. आपकी साल में कितनी साड़ीज निकलती है जो आपको यूज नहीं करनी है या तो आपके लिए वो यूजलेस हो चुकी है. करीबन 5, 6, 7, 10 साड़ीज तो निकलती है घर में जिसका कोई यूज नहीं है. So that lady is doing that thing. That वो साड़ी में से अपने she is making साड़ी को स्ट्रिप बना के उसमें से उसकी बॉबिन्स बना रही है. और after this video she will make the new cloth out of the old one. मतलब old साड़ीज के स्ट्रिप्स बना के उसको वीविंग करके she will make new cloth. अब नेक्स्ट जो है नेक्स्ट ये जो है वो सैंपल में से बनाया है. Next to fourth video. Yeah, so this kind of things can be done. I mean, we can bring new ideas from that. I have another thing that after this we had one idea that जैसे हम old कपड़ों का use करते हैं, old clothes we are using, why not to do something new? तो हमने एक आइडिया फाइंड किया. एक गुजरात में एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन is already working on that we will bring the carry bags, which is a big problem for us, everybody, for every city. हमारे हर एक सिटी को ये प्रॉब्लम है कि ये कैरी बैग्स जो है जो सिटी में है रिसाइकल नहीं हो सकते हैं, उसका क्या किया जाए. तो we came up with the idea that why not to use those carry bags to make something new. These are the carry bags which are used to make a new product. So it is already there in my state. We are working on this project. ये सब आप जो थ्रो करते हो कैरी बैग्स घर में से, उसमें से बना है. This also are made of old carry bags, right? જબલા, જેને આપણે જબલા કહીએ છીએ ગુજરાતીમાં. These are the made from old carry bags. And this is a rapper of crackjig biscuit, kurkure, and all these things. And everybody, yesterday and today, everybody is asking, every lady is asking me, from where did you get this? This we made from the waste which we are throwing out of the home. Those things, those ladies are making, those things we are making from the things which are at home. We are making these things from old saris. The clothes I am wearing also from old saris. So all these things are circular fashion. I am an upcycling of clothes. I wanted to introduce these things, but now I want to tell you something. All ladies sitting over here, especially, Kamlesh, I will take 2 minutes more, then I will finish my things. I will not take much time. 2 things. We all are public representative. We have a lot of people in the communities and societies. Like, we have connections like हम जानते हैं कि कौन क्या बनाता है. उनके पास वो गट्स है बनाने की, पर उनके पास ये नहीं है कि ये बना के क्या करना है. The lady who was weaving, जो वीव कर रही थी ओल्ड कपड़े को, उसको एक ही चीज सिखाई गई है. She taught one thing only कि she has to make गालीचा. उसको आइडिया नहीं है नई चीज बनाने का. So we have to find the thing or the person who can design from those things. इसकी चीज को हम नए फैशन में कैसे ला सकते हैं, and then how we can send them for marketing. We can preach in a very good manner. हम बहुत अच्छे से preach करके ये सब opportunities खड़ा कर सकते हैं. That what we want to talk about today. So you have a power, you have a creativity, you have a transform power. So use your creativity, transform it to help those ladies who are in need, who are producing something. Use your idea, convert them to new thing, new fashion. ये सब चीजें मैंने दिखाई, सब पुराने कपड़े हैं. ये भी मेरी मम्मी साड़ी फेंक रही थी, मैंने लेके उसमें से ये बना लिया है. So we can do this thing, transform it to new fashion, give some new ideas, and we can do that. So I will end up over here with this saying. Again, I will appreciate that you all listen very carefully. I hope that you all might have enjoyed my session. Though it was not 100% technical session or say academic session, but thank you very much, Kamlesh, for giving me this opportunity, and thank you very much to all of you.
For introducing this very innovative social, business model to our esteemed audience and to also other invited speakers. I think what the kind of challenges which you address is one of the very important challenges which the women innovator is facing to link the product with the market. So just to inform you that AILG has also been awarded one of 5-year projects which is known as Girl Power in the state of Jharkhand, where we are also providing market linkage support to various innovators, and the focus is on women and girls between age group 14 to 49, and we would like to see how we can bring your people to transfer the knowledge if this is not available in the state of Jharkhand. And we would also like to see how the market linkage could be provided. We have also Ankit here, who worked a lot with the British, who worked with the British Fashion Council, and he may be having different examples of circular business model. This is one of the grassroots circular business model, and we would like to listen to Ankit, his experience, and Ankit would be very happy if you could share with us some example how the community, industries, and also local government can join the effort and create circular business model. And in the earlier presentation, as you have seen that we already have a 5-year big project, we would like to see how we could also leverage on the expertise and the various available business model. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kamlesh. We will start with the session. Towards the end of the day, I think all of you want to get home or just go and sit on the beach. So I will keep it easy, keep it simple, keep it relevant and direct. But we have the opportunity to ask questions later on. So I'm happy to take questions then. Maybe to start off, could you tell me how many of you are from Goa? We have 2 hands in the audience. And when I talk about the circular economy, the first thing that hit me yesterday as I landed in Goa and took a taxi, speaking to the cab driver, he said, "Sir, we can only drive one way and not the way back." And they charged us 950 rupees for my journey from the airport to the hotel because he had to go back empty. And I think that is where, if anyone from Goa Ministry is here, I know there are reasons why this happens, but this is where you could start with circular economy. You know, you have to take a passenger back to maximize, to optimize the opportunity. So although this wasn't, part of what I wanted to talk about, that was the first thing that hit me yesterday. So I'll start by trying and waking you all up today by asking a few quiz questions. The first one being, if anyone can guess, and you have a 33% chance of winning, less than what percentage of materials used to produce clothing is recycled into new clothing? What do you think? These are latest data, latest statistics. Any idea? Any guesses? Less than 1%. It is indeed. We hardly do anything to produce any clothing and recycle them into new. The next one, and I'm trying to go a little fast, we are conscious of a little bit of the time. Worldwide, the average number of times a garment is worn before it ceases, before it stops to be used, has decreased by what percentage compared to 15 years ago? So in 2005, if you were wearing 10 garments then, before, a garment 10 times before you stopped using it, how many times are you using them now? About 7, 36%. So we are not using the garments as much. And I came across a very interesting statistics yesterday. In the US, they did a survey in 15 states, 15 very rich, affluent states over there. And they checked with a number of regular users of garment. And over there, the data came that of every 3 garments they bought, 2 were used less than once. So basically once or never. Before it ended up in landfill, they have a process of either donating to charity, but they could not be bothered. Why? Because they bought it from Walmart, they bought it from Target, they bought it from a cheaper shop for $4. There was no value to it. And this is, the point I make about fast fashion. Sorry, can someone I'll need someone on the I shouldn't have done the animation. Thank you. Oh, not that fast. Not that fast. I'll try and keep it brief, but not that brief. And the third question over there, what percentage of industrial water pollution globally is attributable to the dyeing and treatment of textiles used for garments? And to keep it simple, it is the highest number over there, 20% of industrial water pollution globally is just for dyeing and treatment. So this is a huge amount. And I say this because often when we talk about industrial pollution, the one area that is talked about the least is fashion, is textile, is anything to do, right from farming, right from the crop production, going up to, right to the end where you either dispose them off or reuse them or whatever you do with them, including your transport, your logistics as well. Next slide, please. So, industry impacts. The fashion industry produces 10% of human carbon emissions. So if, across the world, whatever we produce, 10%, again I'm trying to emphasize, these are the points I try to make, and these are data, these are statistics from the latest studies and research as well, is the second largest consumer of the world's water supply and pollutes the ocean with microplastics. 3 key impacts I would say. The first one, 10% of our carbon emission. To give you an idea, the global emission from aviation and maritime is less than 10%. So we are saying just the fashion industry has a higher impact than the annual impact of, and we keep on talking about how we reduce. Of course, that's important, but the focus should also be fashion. That's the point I try to make, and that starts right from, your farming. Your crop uses water, it uses fertilizers, and our esteemed colleagues earlier today talked about the impacts of fertilizer and what it is doing to India. Not just India, everywhere in the world. We are making our lands more and more barren. That is the first one. Then you have your yarns and textile and everything, again, significant water consumption to the impact of dyeing and bleaching, all the chemicals used over there. Then the fabric itself and the impact of fabric, the impacts of garment making, right from use, how we use it, to how we wash it. So if I'm not wrong, and I've got the statistics later on, the data later on, but about 60% of the garments made these days are from artificial material. And when these are washed in your washing machine, a lot of this converts into microplastics. And that goes up in our ocean as well. So there is a huge impact of garments and washing and use of garments on water. And finally, end of life, what do we do with the garment? And between all of them, if you look at, once again, Sagaman? Yeah. And between all of them, through that entire supply chain, you have the impact of transport. Because what is grown in a country in Africa is often brought back over here for yarning and milling, and now being thrown back to Ethiopia and Senegal for garment making once again. So the amount of air miles that equate to this is also significant now. Next one, please. Fashion industry facts and figures, and I'll keep it quick. They are all there for you. Clothing production has roughly doubled since 2000, and this is taking into account, so this is per capita, this is taking into account increase in population. So even then, each person is now demanding twice more number of clothing. It's not that we need more, we just buy more. People bought 70, I can't read from here, more garments in 2018 than in 2000, but kept clothes for half that time. So basically you can say, you can double that up to 156% wastage as well. In Europe, fashion companies went from an average offering 2 collections per year in 2000 to 10 on an average in 2018. And I remember earlier today, Mr. Ravi Ranjan mentioned that there are 120 seasons. I believe that could be for textiles, where the yarn manufacturers are getting demand from a lot of their buyers for different seasons. But I do know for a fact that Zara in the UK last year produced 20 seasons as well. So what used to be 2 seasons, you had spring, summer, autumn, winter, went to 4, and you had your fall, and then it kept on increasing, and now you have up to 10 seasons a year. This is again because of higher demand. Up to 85% of the textile go to landfill each year, and that's enough to fill. And to give you a reference, the new stadium where Modi got Trump a few days ago, that's enough to fill the new Motera Stadium 11 times annually. That's the amount of waste, amount of textile that ends up in landfill. Finally, washing clothes, meanwhile, releases 500,000 tons of microfibers, and producing polyester, as I said earlier, 60% of all garments reduces 2 to 3 times more carbon than cotton, and it does not break down. So again, looking at the higher impact of everything in the entire supply chain of fashion, it's something I'd like everyone over here to consider. So how do you design out waste? That's the question over here. And then you have your linear economy, as Europe calls it, your cradle to grave. You give birth, and then it dies at the end of it, and you dump it or you burn it. And then we talked about the recycling economy 10 years ago, 7, 8 years ago as well, which is where you recycle and then you try and put it back, and what doesn't eventually be recycled goes out for refurbishment or for disposal or energy from waste. And now what we talk about is the circular economy model, where you are saying essentially at one stage, we want to be zero waste. We want whatever is produced to come back. And this is technically possible on paper. It's far more difficult. It's not as simple as a scribble on that page over there. Yet, this is something what we must aim and drive towards. That's the idea of circular economy. So, circular fashion economy, implementing circular economy principles in the value chain of the entire clothing production. And the three characteristics, key things to bear in mind over here. The first one being designed for recycling, so that the garments that are made are recyclable. So, when they are designed, again, even car companies like Toyota are doing design thinking. They are making, because end-of-life vehicle directives are there in US, in UK, in Europe, in China, in increasingly now in Indonesia, they are talking about it, and India also came up to that. So this is just garment. If we can have design for recycling concept over there. The third one is recycling in design, which is if they are made from recycled textile material, and then the third one being a recycling system should be available as well. And if you press that once again, that overall is that concept where you integrate all three elements of recycling of textile, recycling of garment, and making recyclable, providing that infrastructure in doing so. Have we got 2 more minutes? I'll try and, okay. I'll skip through this, but if you just look at that last sentence over there, substantial number of initiatives, I've listed a few over there, but the problem is lower awareness or willingness, and this is about circular fashion in India. The awareness isn't there, the willingness is not there, and there are a number of reasons for that. Increasingly, because the middle class, the so-called lower middle class, has higher affordability. So a lot more could be bought, a lot more is out there, and there is a social media impact as well. The key stakeholders, and I've listed down, you know all of them, so right from the government to factories to the users as well. Sagar, am I moving on, please? And I'll just summarize by talking about the key challenges for consumers. Affordability, a lot more is affordable. Fast fashion, that we talked about earlier. The impact of social media, as I said, and then much lower awareness. We are not aware of the impact of fashion, impact of garments, and on the other hand, from producers, there is cost and financial pressure. I've been to at least a couple of dozen factories over here who manufacture shirts like these. So if they are given the fabric, they manufacture for under 70 rupees. And that is when a large company, and I'll not name them, but a large company, Indian-based company will come and say, we need to see high social standards, we need to see high environmental standards, you need to pay your PF, and you yet need to give me 10,000 pieces in 10 days' time. So with all these things, the cost and financial pressures are massive. That is not how this will work. There is increased expenditure for audits and compliance for these companies. They have poor knowledge, and then of course working with the informal sector. So this is bound to be a problem. And in terms of priorities, okay, I'm going to skip to that. I'm happy to share the slides or have a discussion later on. I'm very aware of the time. And if you just put the last slide up, please, Sagar Moy, the one after this one. I've got some examples from across Europe, but this can be again shared later on. And the last slide over there. This one is, if anyone considered creating a business model, what would you do with that? You will have your definition phase, and how you define your company to be circular. You have your design phase, and then finally you have your results phase. And again, a model to implement that. Again, happy to discuss that a bit later on. Thank you very much.
Without wasting a minute, maybe I will quickly invite Abigail for her presentation. Abigail, I will give you just 7 to 10 minutes, and I will also invite Madam Bernardia, Secretary General UCLG-ASPAC, to be on the dais. And if during the, she could just conclude the session after presentation from Abigail. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Abigail. I work with an organization called Saahas Zero Waste, and I'm representing them here. Next slide please. Next slide please. Yeah, so we believe in a concept of circular economy because nature knows no waste. Next slide please. And we also endorse the SDG goals through our idea of the circular economy. So these are our main solutions that we offer. These are our verticals, our zero waste program, where we provide waste management services on-site and off-site, and consultancy, our extender producer responsibility, as well as our recycled products. So through the process of our work with recycled products and working on-site and off-site with various partners, we realize that there is this issue of textile waste. Next slide please. Yeah, so I can't see this clearly, but as it has already been mentioned, with the double amount of fabric that is being produced and the really high amount of consumption that's happening right now with regard to waste, there's only 20% really of any textile waste that's actually being used for recycling. Next slide, please. So there are certain challenges around working with recycling of textile waste, starting with policy. This is not an issue, as it has already been mentioned earlier. This textile waste and textile is not an issue that is being given a lot of attention. Therefore, the amount of policy that is being implemented to actually regulate the whole system is quite low. There's also an absence of a value chain, that is from the time you receive the product to who is recycling it, where is it going, how much of it is going to landfill, how much is it not. There's a certain lack of information available around the value chain, as well as the disposal. Then there's the issue of composition of the material. So any fabric that you pick out, unless it is say like a pure cotton, etc., it will have a blend of so many different fibers and materials. So that makes it a lot harder for the recycling of that product, because they all have a different way in which they stretch, etc., etc. So that again makes it harder for recycling. And as I mentioned earlier, because of the whole lack of policy and value chain, etc., there's not a lot of traceability or statistics available on this issue. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is basically the existing system that we have right now. We have our brands and we have the manufacturers. So there is the brands get the post-consumer material and the manufacturers have the pre-consumer material. So the brands then, the pre-consumer material will go towards, yeah, so they all go through their own value chain. Some go to NGOs and then to some recyclers. Some things go directly to landfill and some don't. But we don't have clarity on that subject yet. So this is the existing system, which is a major challenge to us. Next slide, please. So what Saahas Zero Waste is trying to do in this area is to kind of provide a platform by which we can link the producers, the consumers, as well as the recyclers. So right from the time where we collect the material and assessing that material, then going into understanding what can really happen with those materials, and then eventually who are the people in the market that can actually recycle these materials or upcycle these materials. So we are trying to create a platform for complete linkage and creation of that circularity for textile waste. Next slide, please. Yeah. So there is, through this process of providing a platform, we will have the opportunity to do waste audits. So the issue that I highlighted earlier with regard to the lack of information available, having that kind of a platform and creating that traceability will help us understand really what is the data out there on the waste that's being generated, where it's starting, where it's going. The social impact, definitely, because if you're working with self-help groups and you're working, as mentioned earlier, with people who know only to do that kind of work, you're going to give opportunity to a lot of people. So there's a huge social impact associated with that, and hence that naturally improves the circularity of textile waste. Next slide, please. Yeah, so this is a little diagram of exactly how we are doing this process of creating a platform. So the waste that's collected from our locations or from manufacturers, etc., then goes into a sorting area. Either it's sorted on site or it's taken to a secondary sorting area where we assess what are the materials. If there is blends, then those go separately. If it's like 90 or 98% of cotton, those go separately. And then we connect with different stakeholders in the market, like your self-help groups, etc., who will be able to tell us what they can actually do with that material. So then that material will go to these people. We have run a couple of pilots on that subject. And then there are different materials that can be used. Some of it you can extract it and you can get your yarn, your thread that can be directly reused. In some cases, you can make new materials, like upcycling, as has already been spoken of. So that is the method, that platform that we can provide by creating this kind of an opportunity. Next slide, please. These are just a few pictures of some of the materials that we have created, like bags and bells and all these other things through our textile waste. Yeah, so these are the various stakeholders that are involved in this process. Definitely the waste generators, that is the brands, as well as the manufacturers. the waste collection and transportation partners, self-help groups, recycling organizations, and Saahas Zero Waste is trying to build that platform for everyone. Slide please. Yeah, I think we have another session, so I'm just going to conclude. Social inclusion, of course, because we are trying to formalize the whole system, so that way there is traceability provided to the producers, the consumers, as well as the people involved in recycling. So yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Of ASihBudiati and UCLG-ASPAC, maybe I will take the honor to invite Madam Bernardia, who is Secretary General of UCLG-ASPAC, to provide her view and also to conclude the session, because she is leading the the efforts on creating a circular pathway for the cities in Asia Pacific region. It would be very nice to listen to her views and conclude the session. Unfortunately, we would not take up any question because already we are delaying the session. So maybe we can talk in tea break or maybe tomorrow.
Very good afternoon, everybody. This session has been very, very interesting. I missed the first one, but the second one on fashion circular issue is very, very interesting because we have been wearing clothes since we were born. And I didn't know the facts that only 1% of those clothes has been recycled. And sometimes we don't have knowledge, good knowledge of understanding the materials we use. We see that polyester seems to be very cheap than cotton. So sometimes we go to choose polyester because it's cheap price, not to see the consequences behind that. This knowledge, I know, not only limited to many of us, but many people, especially in Asia Pacific, are not aware about this. So the issue is that this has becoming a good trend. Circular economy has been a good trend, and we know that a lot of cities have been trying their best to come up with zero waste, and this is possible. Like city of Taipei has also been progressing enough in making zero waste in place, and also many other cities in Japan. The issue is that how can make this circular economy as wide as possible, especially in Asia Pacific region. 2 years ago, we created together with ALIG what we call it United Network of Circular Cities, UNCC. This is why we started doing many things about circular economy. It's not only about waste, but about textile as well as other issues. So what we plan from now is that ALIG is going to propose this circular cities as one of the committees of UCLG-ASPAC. In this regards, then we will have a kind of committee inside UCLG-ASPAC that we will put as well as a policy, not only about projects or program, but about policy. How can we make this as a policy in our cities and our regions? So we will be also discussing this in the next Executive Bureau meeting, probably in May or in April in New Zealand. And we circular economy will be putting as one of the top issue discussed during the Executive Bureau meeting. But the bottom line is we have to be aware about the impact. Cities only occupy 3%, lands only occupy 3% of the total world or total earth, but we consume more than 60% of natural resources. We also produce more than 60% of waste on the entire earth. So the solution, cities are part of the solutions. Of course, we produce some of these challenges, but we are part of the solution. So I really like to thank all the speakers here who joined our session. Thank you very much for giving us good insights that the circular economy is one of the solutions of global warming and global change, how we tackle those climate change issue. But the important is that how this connect also to economic growth. So we will not have any more linear economic growth, but having a circular economic growth. So thank you once again, and I hope you will enjoy the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thank you, Banadia, for sharing your leadership view for the organization. With this, I will conclude the session with thanks to the invited guests and my esteemed speaker for sparing their time for the session. And the next session is going to be the Women Waiter, which is the next parallel session. I would request the women especially and also men to join the effort of this launching event. And I would also request my speakers to line up for the photograph. Thank you.